speculate on personal background, personal factors, helps keep voters engaged with the political system, keeps them involved, because the public should be involved in a Western liberal democracy. Now, in terms of the character discussion's relevancy to policy, the personal lives and backgrounds of political figures have a clear effect on policy decisions that they make or will make if they're given a position of power. For example, Family First Senator Steve Fielding is a deeply religious man, and this is out there in the public forum. This is a part of his character that is known to the public. This is his personal background, but it is clearly going to affect policy decisions made in relation to the separation of church and state. Now, these policy decisions affect Australians. They affect the voting Australian public. Therefore, surely we should understand the factors that will influence these policy decisions before we're expected to go out and make a vote for Family First. Another example, American Vice President Dick Cheney has clear previous ties to the US military-industrial complex in America. Now, before the 2000 election, there was not enough open discussion of this part of his background prior to the election. It was kept behind closed doors, the public was not involved. Now, the negative is saying that it would be better if this was always the case. Yet if we look at this particular example, through a lack of open character critique, voters were unknowingly voting for someone who was a man biased towards starting wars that have since turned into trillion-dollar conflicts. It is clear that political figures' character can influence decisions they could later make in a position of power. These decisions affect the general public, the voting masses. Therefore, voters have a right. They have a right to understand the factors that could influence these decisions when electing leaders. If character is relevant to policy, which it clearly is, therefore it is relevant to the public, and the public has a right to understand character's role in affecting this. Now, the idea of engaging voters with the political system. In a functioning liberal democracy, the government should be serving the voters, should be looking after the general public of Australia. The average voter does not want to know about complex bills and the process that gets them through legislature because it gives most people a headache. They want to know exactly who they're voting for. They want to know who they are being led by and why. And the easiest way for voters to relate to their leaders, to the politicians, is both in terms of policy, as I just explained, and in terms of understanding the leadership, is through discussion of character, through discussion of personal background, beliefs, biases, prejudices, you name it. As I said before, the reason that the coverage in the American election is based so much on character is because this is how the voting public relates to our leaders. This is how they understand the political system. This is how they're engaged with it. And if this is how voters want to engage with the system, the government and our society must cater to that. We must allow open and frank character critique, character debate, in order to ensure that our voters are engaged with the system, especially in a country that has compulsory voting, especially in a country where we are forced to vote. When we are forced to vote, we need to involve the public as much as possible, and therefore character discussion is necessary. In conclusion, discussion of politicians' character and background helps our democracy function well. This is the highest priority. This comes over politician feelings privacy is violated. This comes over personal issues with politicians. We need a well-functioning democracy. The effects on voters brought forward by character discussions are that the character of political figures is relevant to policy decisions that affect voters, and that character discussion engages voters with the system. Thank you.
The second negative speaker, Davinder Jayawardene, will continue their case.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like to take a look at the opposition case as it has been so far. And as we've seen, the opposition has come up and supported political character attacks on the fact that they keep politicians honest. However, not once during their debate have they addressed the major fact the majority of such attacks and allegations are false. And despite this, the opposition seems happy to allow such false allegations, the majority of them are false, to influence political votes, which in fact will influence the public's choice of those who govern them. Now, this crusade that we have seen for the freedom of speech blinds them, secondly, to a major fact. We need politicians to produce policies that will aid the public. Now, the opposition opposition has come up with an argument that says, burn the politicians. As long as they're honest, we don't care what happens to them. We will do anything to get to have all this information about them. They want to burn the politicians' privacy in order to get the information that they want. And secondly, the second speaker has come up and said, people don't want to know about complex bills. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know about you, but I want to know what the hell the people up there are thinking when they're governing my area, my state, my country. I don't want people who, just because he's black, I'm not going to vote for him. I just want the white guy because, that's the way I think. I want people who are up there because their policies are good when it comes to governing my area, my state, my country. Ladies and gentlemen, they've said that we would rather know about whether someone has gone to a nightclub and done something or another compared to how they will govern a nation. Now, ladies and gentlemen, onto my substantial case. Today, I will be talking about two major reasons why character attacks are not legitimate tactics according to the criteria produced by my first speaker. The legitimacy contains three factors: whether it is allowed, whether it is justified, and whether it is effective. Now, firstly, I'll be talking about the effectiveness of the character attack within the political arena. And secondly, I'll be talking about the protection of our politicians in the political arena from such allegations. Now, onto my first point. The character attack has been used as a political tactic in the past, and a prime example of this is a picture of Obama, which I'm sure many of you have seen, dressed in the national dress of an African country while in this country. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we can see that the release of such a picture is a dirty tactic of an opposition member, unknown who, to paint the picture that Obama is more a foreigner than an American. Ladies and gentlemen, this is clearly an attempt by Obama's opposition to polarize the American public based on the fact that Obama has an African heritage. This attempt to induce polarization of the American people, we see that this is an attempt to decide the democratic race on factors like religion and race rather than individual policies. And ladies and gentlemen, our debate today comes down to that. The fact that character attacks often move attention away from individual policies and keep them on factors like race and religion. Now, the effectiveness of such a tactic is compromised by the fact that it directs votes away from, in this case, Obama, at the cost of the integrity of the democratic system, which is based on the fact that people choose their leaders by how they will lead them, not their race, not their gender, not their religion. Now, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes we can even see that this character slander backfires on those who instigate it. The Right incident at the strip club was a failed attempt at character slander, which actually helped Right gain votes. Because of the laid-back lifestyle of the Australian people, we see that the common Australia jokingly identified with such behaviour. And in conclusion to this point, we see that the character attack results in two scenarios. Firstly, the gaining of popularity through the undermining of the democratic system, and secondly, the complete backfiring of such a tactic. And at these 2 points, the character attack is not a legitimate tactic, according to my speaker's first criteria. Now, my second point. The character attack is often aimed at politicians for their private lives. And despite the opposition stating that we should know everything about our politicians, we must recognise that many of these politicians are respected public servants who serve the need of the people. Now, these people deserve privacy. They deserve their policies to be heard, despite the fact that someone has said, oh, he's a secret Muslim concerning Obama. Oh, he has gone to some brothel somewhere or another. Until these have been correctly seen as true, this is just political slander, and it's ineffective, because we see that if we don't protect our politicians to a certain degree, once again we'll be undermining our democratic system by losing future politicians due to such slander. We will be losing future politicians and possibly future policies because of the fact of this political slander that in many cases is false. In this case, political character attacks. Now we see that this reason makes character attacks illegitimate on the fact that such character attacks hurt our current and future democratic